Ladies and gentlemen, this is White Lightning 777. Oh, hold on. Ladies and gentlemen, this is White Lightning 777. Let me get this. An interesting, somewhat disturbing trend is occurring. I usually find the leftoids disturbing since they tend to have a better media empire and they're more prominent that way. But the fact is that they're not the only variety of infestation. Socialism is not an original crime. The socialists are copycat criminals. They use a conflict theory that was copied from forms of terrorism and religious fanaticisms. Essentially, they're theocrats. That's what they do. That's what the hell did I... Now I stepped on cardboard. Whatever. That's what socialists do. And if we get rid of the socialists and we get rid of the left, we're no better off than people were 1,000 years ago. It means, say if you disprove global warming, easy to do, and disprove that there's 15,000 genders, okay? And disprove that. But people go back to believing in werewolves and demons and, weird, Antichrist figures born from jackals and, to take over the world. Never mind the fact that a jackal only weighs about 15 pounds and a human baby weighs about 10 pounds. I don't even want to picture that in my mind. I mean, there are certain things that, if seen, can never be unseen. Okay, if you go back to that, and the theocrats get back in, you haven't saved the world. You've just resurrected the ancient world and all of its scourges. It's slavery. It's human sacrifice, it's burning people at the stake, it's weird orgies, all of that stuff comes back. And things like, and that's why things like, these people who think that there are actually vampires, or people who think the earth is flat, is far from harmless. Like the global warming hoax, these things were designed to separate fools from their money, to let men allow the disreputable and the criminal elements to sodomize their wives and daughters without taking up a sword, and to allow people to be brainwashed. Theocracy, every single crime Stalin committed, Muhammad, the Crusaders, the Aztec war priest in their pyramids, the Egyptians, they did it first. So it's not enough to just put them back in. Otherwise, you've simply rolled back the clock. And you have to understand that when someone is skeptical of technology, when someone is depriving you of technology, and they're appealing to you to return to primitivism, return to the garden. I don't care if they're left wing or right wing. That person is your enemy. That person's out to kill you. Because guess what? That person is a troll working for government agents and, fanatics that aren't going to give up their technology. Do you think these crooked TV preachers like Copeland or, what's the other one, Joseph Olson, you think they're going to give up their cars with internal combustion engines, stop eating steak, and stop flying private jets? Do you think that Al Gore is going to stop eating steaks and flying private jets and driving cars with big engines? You think any of them are going to give up their 5G phones or their satellites or their air conditioning? Think that these elite pedophile, pedovore dirtbags that are running amok and that desperately need a date with a firing squad are going to give up anything? They're not. they're going to talk a bunch of crap, spread a bunch of doomsday theories, and get you to give up what's yours, even if you have almost nothing to begin with. They take the most from those who have the least. That's the way theocrats and communists behave. That is the main trait they have in common. Of course, they're also united in their love for pedophilia as well. But, you know, and it is worth debunking myths of the ancient world. The reason that you cannot, for example, a man can't become a woman is because you don't have the proper genes to code for those bodily structures and functions at the microcellular level. You also can't become a werewolf or a vampire or a mermaid or a silky or a dragon for the exact same reason. The principles are the same. Shape-shifting is primitivism. Shape-shifting is shamanism and savagery, and leads only to a situation where highly paid elites with inflated credentials that they probably cheated to get end up mutilating normal working people for no damn reason. The principle is identical. Before the psych wards the psych wards will be filled with these tranny and transgenders, and they'll have to be brainwashed and given electroshock treatment and put back into a state of normalcy eventually. Before that, the insane asylums were filled. Hundreds of thousands of people across Europe thought that they were becoming werewolves. And plenty of scandalmongers were selling people wolfsbanes and magic charms so they wouldn't become a werewolf, or offering to chain people up in cellars for an exorbitant fee every time the moon went full. I mean, that was a pretty good grift back then. I mean, it's almost as, well, I mean, it's almost as good as, it's almost as good as the global warming hoax, or what passed for it. They're all hoaxes. Flat Earth is a hoax. The flat earthers will tell you, well, objects don't have enough gravity to begin the planetary formation process. Who said it began with gravity? If you take socks in a wool sweater and put it in your dryer, okay, and you dry them and you take them out, you will notice that the socks stick to the sweater, even though gravity is pulling them apart. In fact, the magnetism from that is stronger than the gravity of the planet. Why? Because a dryer produces radiation in the form of infrared heat, and it also has an electromagnetic field, so it begins to electrify things. Okay? If you've ever seen a magnetizer, if you want to make the end of your screwdriver magnetic, you get this little thing from like Harbor Freight and you plug it in and you can stick your screwdriver in it and magnetize it. That also uses an electromagnetic field. That's how the first objects, that's how planetary formation began. Now, after a while of this core accreting, eventually gravity takes over and electromagnetism plays a smaller and smaller role. In fact, to this day, the core of our planet is magnetic. The compasses work. So it still plays a role in nature, protects us from solar radiation. So they're going to tell you things like that. Or they're going to tell you, well, the dinosaurs couldn't have evolved into birds. What's the use of a wing that can't fly? Well, have these people ever watched NASCAR? Have these people ever watched the Indianapolis 500? There's plenty of vehicles with wings that don't fly. And those wings help. For aerodynamic purposes, they could be used for display purposes, threat displays, to make their head look bigger, whatever. They could be used for sexual signaling. Peacocks use their feathers for that. And, and even if a wing can't take you into the air, if you're flapping a wing that, say, only generates a third of the lift that you need to take off the ground, that wing is still taking a third of the load off of your feet and increasing your speed by a third. It's still helping you move, just not as much as it could. And of course, the more it helps, the better it gets. the truth is that birds are dinosaurs. And I did another video on that. You can check that out. And what you could do with hollow bones is you could do one of two things. You could stay small and fly, or you could use the weight saving that hollow bones and that body type gives you and use that to increase your size tremendously. In other words, I mean, you're still kind of going up in the air. You're just really, really, really tall instead of flying really fast. But these things aren't harmless. And this is why hard science should be taught. You don't need to teach this queer theory, global warming nonsense. What should be taught? Social biology, evolution, astronomy, physics. Yeah. Chemistry. There's no reason why a 12-year-old can't learn what Gibbs free energy is or learn what E equals MC squared means. You know, the hard sciences should be taught, and technology, you know, should be embraced in the mixed bag for what it is. Think of it this way, you know. Well, I don't know what's in the vaccines. I don't know what's in the food. I don't know what's in this, or I don't know. I mean, people can say that. Neither did Neanderthal. Neanderthal had no idea whether that mushroom was poisonous or not. The only thing Neanderthal was capable of was eating a little bit of it and seeing if they got sick. Everything was done ad hoc by experimentation and rote memorization anyway. You know, they don't know. I mean, if you go to Africa and you look at the Bushmen, okay, or you look at the Maasai, do you think they can name the ingredients? Do they know what's in the snake venom? They know it's poisonous. They know some snakes are harmless and some aren't. Nobody knows everything about anything, and they never did. That sort of mystery and unknowability is actually one thing that we still have in common with the ancient world. It's not something that arose. It's not some new phenomenon that occurred. Well, I don't know all the ingredients in my food. Who knew the ingredients in their food? You know, could people that were cooking with all natural ingredients draw the molecules to their food 1,000 years ago? No, they don't know. Can you draw the ones in your food now? No, you don't know. So really, nothing's changed. And, you know, granted, I mean, you know, getting rid of meat and eating lab-grown meat and bugs and stuff is probably not such a great idea. But in a free market, you know, sell the old stuff alongside the new stuff in a free market economy according to modern capitalism. What you do is you sell the bugs to the people who want to eat the bugs, and you sell the lab-grown meat to people who think they're an astronaut, and you sell the regular stuff to everyone else. And then you know what you do? You look at the data. You wait 5, 10, 20 years, and you see who's living longer, who is sicker, who has you know, more problems with obesity, you know, who you know, or are there any changes, or do these people have no statistical differences between them? You run the experiment and let the free market decide the results. The same thing is true with vaccines. Think of a vaccine like a mushroom. Some are safe to eat, some are safe, some aren't. You know, some probably, you know, you don't want to. Even if you, like, say you keep exotic pets, like say you keep scorpions, there's a few that'll kill you. Most won't, but a few will. You know what you're dealing with. Be an informed citizen. Find out as much of this stuff as you can. And if you have a scientific background and you've studied the stuff that I've studied, it's a lot easier to, you know, sort the fakes and the frauds and the lunatics out from people who actually know what they're talking about. And, you know, like if you are, say, vaccinating, and it doesn't even just depend on the vaccine. That's a more complex issue. The vaccine is there to protect you against a microorganism, usually, or maybe a toxin like with tetanus vaccines, or, you know, anti-venom for snakes or whatever. I mean, some of those are antitoxin vaccines, so most of them are antimicrobial. Depends on the microbe. A microbe that has a short incubation period and mutates rapidly is not a good candidate for vaccination. I don't care how good the vaccine is. I don't care how safe it is. I don't care how much quality you put into it. It's just going to be obsolete in 6 weeks. But you get something like this rabies vaccine, a smallpox vaccine, an anthrax vaccine. Those are fully FDA tested and they've held up well. Why? Because the microbes cooperate. They don't want to cooperate, but they can't really evolve and they have long incubation periods, and so they're sort of stuck. And since when microbes evolve, they become more contagious and less dangerous over time. The ones that don't evolve, the ones that stay closest to the original infectious agent, oftentimes are the most dangerous because they never adapted well to live in our bodies anyway. Rabies never adapted well to live in mammals because it never changed since it first entered the gene pool. It's the original type, or very close to it. Sort of like a living fossil. Might even be older than the dinosaurs. We don't even know where it comes from. And that's okay not to know. Not every question's knowable. There are missing links, but there are things that are fairly well established. I mean, Galileo, the first man in the world to make a telescope, the very first man with the very first telescope debunked the flat earthers. When he looked into the sky and noticed that Venus had crescents and half shapes and full, just like the moon. In other words, Venus is going around the sun, not the earth. So within a matter of days of building this very first telescope, he debunks a myth that was thousands of years old. And he wasn't the first one, though. Aristotle also debunked it. The Greeks debunked it. They took sailing boats with long, tall masts on them and sailed them until the mast disappeared, and they knew how tall the mast was, and they knew approximately how fast the boat was going, and they knew, and using geometry and other types of mathematics, they were able to figure out with the curvature that the sea is actually not flat, that the sea has a curvature to it. You're kind of, sort of like a lens. It has a curvature to it, and you're doing this, and they were able to figure out how big the Earth was. In fact, Aristotle got it to within 3% or 5% of what's currently accepted size. They did a good job, and they did it without a single balloon. They did it without a single airplane. They did it without a single light bulb. And they only had abacus little devices to count up the numbers, and most of the math was done on paper with a quill, writing on papyrus, figuring out the numbers themselves. And their number system wasn't even as efficient as the Roman numerals or what we consider modern Arabic numerals, which makes the achievement even more amazing. Again, it's all about the logic, not the emotions. Feelings aren't facts, so they're wrong. And people who want to denigrate the achievements of our country, saying, well, we didn't go to the moon, well, we didn't build a space station, well, we didn't ever really put a satellite in space, you're just anti-Americans. They're just like anybody else that is spreading anti-American lies. And most of these troll farms work for Wagner Group or Xi Jinping, and a lot of them pretend to be right-wingers in order to make us look stupid. They go on these right-wing sites pretending to be these conservatives. The fact is, these are commies. I mean, your typical flat earther probably is 99% likely to be a gay Antifa troll working on some college campus, smoking weed, giggling at people like a fool. That's who you're arguing with. Most of them don't even believe what they say. They want your money. They'll say, well, vaccines are 99% fatal to everybody, but if you buy my natural herbal remedy for $29.99 and give us Bitcoin so you can't sue us and get the money back, we'll send you snake oil. These people are, most of these conspiracy types are quacks, and they're selling a product, or they're selling a cult, or they're selling a religion, or they're selling some weird type of political, debauchery. That's what they are, in most cases. In other words, the fringe is essentially a cesspool of treason and sedition. Anyway, long live the Republic. This is White Lightning 777 signing out.